enough of that. Countdown to Restoration, your President's Day edition. Today we will highlight the guiding principles behind the Biden regime as we count down the days of their horrible reign that we know will soon change. Who am I to bring this to you? I am your host, Danny Thompson. Glad to have you with us. Glad that you watch. Please share this with your friends. Tell them about it, especially today's broadcast, which is a special one, has very little other news. It is just about basically what's going on behind the scenes. But we must show you the poster child for the Biden regime, Dr. Rachel Levine, who is a picture of all things that are wrong. And we do not do this to disparage him, but to just show you that this is the world we now live in, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. And we do have this announcement. Doctors called mom inhumane for not aborting her disabled twin babies, but they were born healthy. Those doctors should be sued for malpractice. I mean, really. I mean, we just never stops. Africans are pleading with Joe Biden to stop using American tax dollars to kill their babies in abortions. Wow, that's just the way you want the country known. And we're going to look later, it's what they want. They used to say every child a wanted child. Now it's almost like every child an aborted child. I mean, it's just sick. And of course, we put up the picture of the dark winter. The poster, what we're going through. They failed the impeachment, but everything else is happening. And it's cold. I mean, those three can... Usually politicians blow cold air, but they're killing us, right? They're killing us. All right, remember the February 20th Market Watch. And I don't know. I just know something. So anyway, and also what do we have? Oh yes, this, as Joe Biden, the pretend president, the man we like to call the thief in chief. Where are you, buddy? Come on, pop up there. The thief in chief. The thief in chief. Yeah, there he goes. Took him a while today. It's President's Day. He's not moving quick. So, yes, we, yesterday being the anniversary of the Parkland, Florida school shooting, the administration used that as an opportunity to launch their assault on the Second Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, and also on all things normal. And so they issued this proclamation. The administration will not wait for the next mass shooting to heed that call, the call to respond. We will take action to end our epidemic of gun violence and make our schools and communities safer. Today I am calling on Congress to enact common sense gun law reforms, including requiring background checks on all gun sales. And about the only background place where you're not required to do a background check is if a private citizen sells to another private citizen. You're not a store, you're not at a gun show. They keep saying that. What they want is a more accurate registration of firearms so they can pick them up. All right, and requiring background checks on all gun sales, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and eliminating immunity for gun manufacturers who knowingly put weapons of war on our streets. We owe it to all those we've lost and to all those left behind to grieve to make a change. The time to act is now. And that is the chilling part of it. And that, while not... They can say, we're not keeping you from owning a gun, but nobody's making them because they will be subject to lawsuits based on any idiot or someone wanting to do that. I'm telling you, if they relieve manufacturers from prosecution, from lawsuits, there's going to be several mass shootings happen right away and there will be lawsuits, and there will be no more guns manufactured or brought in for civilian use in the United States of America. You better call. You better call. See, we won't call. Now, I had wanted to do this, but I will do this tomorrow. But you can go to the New York Post and read it if you want. San Francisco sues schools, citing high number of suicidal students because they won't have school. Even though it's been approved and everything else, we're going to go over this tomorrow because I had promised you that we are going to go over the guiding principle of the Biden regime by the seculardems.org. And so we're going to skip that because it's just too much for one program, I suppose. But before we get into that, we want to look at this, and you say, well, what would this have to do with seculardems.org? This is from the company that controls the power grid in Texas. Texas has its own power grid, and something we've been proud about because we have, as a rule, avoided rolling blackouts and such. The power grid operator in Texas says about half of the wind turbine capacity, 25,000 megawatts in West Texas, is not generating because of winter weather. And we, have pulled ourselves off of non-green energy production as much as we can. And part of that is wind turbines, or what people call windmills. And you know what? There's one little problem. They freeze up in the winter. They work fine during the summer, but they freeze up during the winter. So there are millions without power in this state, which is not used to that. And here in Amarillo, we're fine. Electricity hasn't gone off once that I'm aware of, and we're fine. We're nice and warm, even though it's around 4 or 5 degrees outside or whatever. But in the Dallas area and east and south, through central Texas, a lot of them are freezing to death. And we heard today that the power only comes on for a few minutes at a time because we don't have enough power. So what does that have to do with what is guiding the Biden administration or regime? All right, they want, in this document we are about to unfold to you and do several highlights. Oh, this is one of the things that they want done. The reliability and the oncoming wave of retiring baseload unit, Volume 1, the critical role of thermal units during extreme weather events, which is what we're having today. The report used inaccurate calculations to justify its conclusion that coal power plants are essential during severe weather conditions. The authors were reportedly pressured to positively portray the net benefits of coal. Well, let me give you one of the net benefits of coal. In extremely cold weather in Texas, coal-fired power plants do help, because we've had them for years, because in Texas we have lignite coal, which does not require deep mining. You can just rake it off the top of the surface of the earth and dig down a little bit. You do it with a steam shovel, not, men and women going underground into the coal mines. And we've never had this problem before. And yes, we've had times not this cold in recent memory for this long. But yeah, when it's been around zero and below and everything else, and yeah, there might be some adjustments, but the power didn't go out. So obviously that report was true, but they don't want that report. Yes, that's in a seculardems.org report. All right, so anyway, if you are a regular to the program, you are used to us showing you this, and you can go and read everything seculardems.org. And I know a lot of people think, oh, that really doesn't cover, anything in my life. It's just, there. It's just one of those reports. No, the House has already adopted this as its guiding principle. The Senate has two once they switch to the Democratic majority. And what do? Restoring constitutional secularism and patriotic pluralism in the White House. And in this report, this is what we are covering. There is a preamble. There is the legal landscape. There is Section 1, government funding, evidence-based, non-sectarian, and non-discriminatory. Section 2, restoring constitutional secularism and scientific integrity. Section 3, religious freedom abroad. Section 4, patriotism, pluralism, and sincere inclusion, protecting the rights and dignity of non-theists, those that don't believe in God. Then there's an appendix, all the list of Trump administration actions that they do not like. The Congressional Free Thought Caucus membership. I'm sorry, every time I read that, I'll laugh. But they actually have a caucus called the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, which is a big part behind all of this. Humanists for Biden Advisory Council endorsements, and of course, the ever-popular acknowledgments, the people who put this together. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, they did some work. I mean, this is a report. This is amazing. It's horrible and amazing all at the same time. Now, before we get into that, let's look at, because they base everything on this, the Establishment Clause, is it called? What is the Establishment Clause? The First Amendment's Establishment Clause prohibits the government from making any law respecting an establishment of religion. This clause not only forbids the government from establishing an official religion, but also protects government actions that unduly favor, one religion over another. It also prohibits the government from unduly preferring religion over non-religion or non-religion over religion. Now, that is the interpretation from Cornell Law School, law.cornell.edu. And so, what does the actual Constitution tell us? All right. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, you will not see anything there like people make it out to be. And this is, there because, why? Because under British rule, there was a national church. There was an official church, the Church of England or the Anglican Church, and every British citizen was part of that church, and so as such, you were taxed. You had to pay tithe and different things to the church, whether you attended or not. It was just part of the government. Well, we didn't want that, and rightfully so. So we wanted the government out of religion. That did not mean we wanted religion out of the government. But that has been used time and time again to accomplish that end. Now, this place, Freedom Forum Institute, freedomforuminstitute.org, has a little article kind of summing some things up. The First Amendment says nothing about separation of church and state or a wall of separation between church and state. And as we just read, it does not, does it? Did you read it there? Do you see it there? That comes in through Supreme Court interpretations and other articles written on it, etc., etc. So, we read, the Establishment Clause separates church from state, but not religion from politics or public life. Individual citizens are free to bring their religious convictions into the public arena. But the government is prohibited from favoring one religious view over another, or even favoring a religion over non-religion. Now, it doesn't even say all that. That's just the way people work it out. But where did that little phrase come from? separation of church and state. Well, one of the most notable that the Supreme Court uses, because Thomas Jefferson, being one of the framers and even writers of the Constitution, wrote, explaining it, or using this phrase in 1802 to the Danbury Baptist Association. I contemplate with sovereign reverence the act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Now, that is important because of how you use it. If there is a true separation between church and state, and the state can have nothing to do with church, and the church has to be kept out of the state, then we do not live in a what we think we live in. We live in a godless society, a true secular society. This is what these people want us to do. And really, it's not about keeping all religions out. It's about keeping Christianity out, which we will see. And so this is the guiding principle behind the Biden regime, behind the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives and now the Democrat-controlled U.S. Senate, and they want it behind the judiciary. Sorry, I had a little earthquake there. So we are going to go through some things so that you can understand what this means. And like I said, they are using this, and there's more, this is just highlights. They're using this as their guidelines to govern. And this is what they write. We urge you not to underestimate the institutional strength of what we refer to interchangeably in this document as the Christian nationalist movement or the religious right. The movement is extraordinarily well-funded and well-organized, and the manifestation of its extreme and sectarian agenda is on constant display under the Trump-Pence administration. Its political ideology is anti-democratic and anti-scientific. It provides constant cover for white supremacy, and it advances a reactionary economic policy, tax policy, and what do we want? We want reactionary economic policy. We want the free market. We want the government out of the way. We want lower taxes and dominionist view of the environment that undermines our capacity and will to address the climate crisis. We want it to make sense. We don't want all these non-scientific rules. Its agenda rests on a pinched interpretation of biblical principles preached by Christian nationalist leadership and thought leaders, with their political agenda sanctioned by a higher power, meaning God. Their base of support is disciplined, motivated, and deeply committed to a vision that does not align with our basic constitutional values and democratic principles. In other words, we as Christians who have certain views, we're the ones that's out of step. We're not constitutional, and we need to be countermanded. Everything needs to happen to change us and to keep the government free from us. Now, that's their goal. And we've seen it happen before under Clinton to some extent, under Obama to a larger extent. And now this regime, they're poised to take it higher than we've ever seen, to a greater extent than we've ever seen. And even to the point where we'll show you in one excerpt, it's just veiled language where we need reprogramming. We need to be taught how to think. Yeah, boy, that's comforting, isn't it? From Section 1, government funding, evidence-based, non-sectarian, and non-discriminatory. A secular government governs on the basis of reason, science, and evidence. Now, this is what the French did. They took out the church, and our founders did not want that. They did not want a government and a country governing on the basis of reason, science, and evidence like the French. They cherished greater principles than that. Science was on the ballot in 2020 because this administration's dangerous disdain, the Trump administration's dangerous disdain for expertise, shocking denial of facts it dislikes for ideological reasons, and naked interference in what should be nonpartisan scientific inquiry. Oh yeah, like the Biden regime's already just listening to the science, like when the CDC director earlier this month released what she said was what schools needed to do to reopen, wear masks, clean, keep social distance, wash hands, etc. The press secretary, Jen Psaki, said what? Oh, that's not the guidelines. That's just her operating in her personal capacity. And what did the guidelines say? Oh, wear a mask, wash hands, keep social distance, clean. Teachers don't have to have vaccinations. So, they're not listening to science. You cannot separate the government from politics. I don't care how you say it. Anyway, interference in what should be nonpartisan scientific inquiry have cost more than 260,000 American lives. Come on. Government-wide policies on scientific integrity should be adopted by all federal agencies to ensure that federal analysis is free from political and religious bias and that government funding is used to support evidence-based programs. And that they've put for every agency, they have science officers now. They have somebody say, oh, that's not scientific. Additionally, taxpayer dollars should not be funneled either to contractors or grantees that discriminate on the basis of religion or to programs that promote a sectarian agenda, such as private religious schools, crisis pregnancy centers, and abstinence-only sex education, which we will look at a little later. But they are telling you their framework, what they want to do. All right, it's pretty plain. All right, we urge your administration to disincentivize state funding for programs that are not evidence-based and which can cause harm by spreading misinformation, such as crisis pregnancy centers and abstinence-only education programs. These programs are an ineffective use of taxpayer dollars, and they cause demonstrable harm to vulnerable communities. So, having a crisis pregnancy center where you turn people away from abortion to help them manage the pregnancy, and abstinence-only education causes harm. No, it keeps babies from being aborted, which causes harm to these people. These people feel actual harm if a child is not aborted. I'm telling you, say, oh, that's a little overboard. Well, they're saying that not aborting causes harm. So this is what they want. And they're already acting on all of this as the Biden regime has turned largely to what? Abortion policies. Not largely, that's all they're about anymore. It's just really, it's just the way it is. They want them to utilize every mechanism at the administration's disposal to ensure that the Department of Education does not, in no way, my words, funnel taxpayer dollars to private schools. Any private school receiving taxpayer funding, whether directly or indirectly, should be held to the same non-discrimination and accommodation requirements of public schools and expected to meet curriculum standards for secular subjects, including science and history. Where Supreme Court decisions are held to require government funding for religious schools or other religious programs, the administration should seek to ensure that such funding cannot be used for religious purposes. Where it funds religious groups providing secular services, it should use the authority that comes with the provision of such funding to ensure that the services provided are delivered equally and without favor and reach the level of quality that publicly provided services reach. In other words, they can't put any requirements on any of their recipients, even if they know that it'll help them. They can't hand out a tract if they're a church group. They can't invite people to church. They can't tell them there are other ways to handle a situation. They can't say, let me pray for you. All right? If receiving government funds, religious schools should be required to teach curricula in accordance with national secular standards, particularly in areas such as the teaching of science. And we know how well national standards have worked for education in the country, right? We're like 500 million behind every other country in education. Fully and robustly fund comprehensive, medically accurate sex education. All right? Fully fund that so we can have more Dr. Rachel Levine. So we can have first graders that understand masturbation. So we can have more drag queens teaching reading books to preschoolers. So we can have more classes where middle schoolers have to pair off with someone of the same sex so they can understand better same-sex relations. In one school, during the summer, I saw this. It was a true report. They had to even kiss each other. It's just, this is what they're talking about. This is what they want. They want little boys to be told they can be little girls to be told they can be little boys, and then hide it from their parents. They want that funded. They want that fully funded. Now, you can't fund anything to help people, but boy, you can sure fund that. Yes, I just did that one, so let's do this one. All right. We strongly recommend coordinating closely with the Congressional Free Thought Caucus on issues in Congress affecting religious freedoms, separation of church and state, and scientific integrity. In 2018, the CFC, the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, was founded in large part to stand up to a deluge of startling attacks on the secular character of our government by the Trump administration. This will be the first Democratic administration that will have the opportunity to partner with a Congressional caucus committed and focused specifically on these issues. Representatives Jamie Raskin of Maryland and Jared Huffman of California serve as the caucus co-chairs, and you can find the full list of members on page 26 of this report. The mission of the caucus is to promote public policy formed on the basis of reason, science, and moral values, protect the secular character of our government by adhering to the strict constitutional principle of the separation of church and state, oppose discrimination against atheists, agnostics, humanists, seekers, religious and non-religious persons, and to champion the value of freedom of thought, conscience worldwide, and provide a forum for members of Congress to discuss their moral frameworks, ethical values, and personal religious journey. Imagine that, my journey to non-belief. That should be exciting and should be on everybody's bestseller shelf, right? No, they want to take discuss each other's moral judgments and values. What, anything goes? Kids, little boys can be turned to girls. Older boys can race against girls in track and moral values. Oh my goodness! What do we do? What do we do? But I'm a Christian and I voted for Joe Biden because I was tired of mean old Trump. This one you'll like. The nation's addiction crisis has been further exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. As your administration tackles this issue, we urge you to expand access to secular, evidence-based mutual aid peer recovery support programs that expressly support medical assisted treatment. So, that also cuts out many church groups and faith-based groups. Why? Because they don't use drugs. It's faith-based. It's not drug-based. They want drug. They want the drug users on drug users like heroin users are stuck on methadone. I mean, these people don't want to help anyone. All they want to do is to keep their little world, going and to ruin the country. Reverse all sectarian-based restrictions of federally funded fetal tissue and stem cell research and ensure that allocations of funding are informed by the national interest, not dictated by religion or pseudoscience. In other words, we want to use aborted babies for research, and also Planned Parenthood and other abortion facilities. They make money doing that, selling those aborted babies. Now, we've done a lot to stop that. It still continues in some ways, but, that's what they want to go back to it. And yes, but they're needed for research. We're killing babies to keep people alive. What kind of society does that make us? And we want funding to go to that, even though they're paying for this. They're animals. They're animals. Oh, well, they probably mean well. No, they don't. No, they don't. Work with the Attorney General to reverse former Attorney General Jeff Sessions' memorandum on federal law protections for religious liberty. What's wrong with that? In its place, issue a memorandum taking away religious liberty, basically. Issue a memorandum instructing all executive agencies to interpret religious freedom in such a way that protects the separation of religion and government. So, you're free to do that, except this person says it's bothering them and they're part of the government. I don't know, where can you take that? Any way you want, that protects the separation of religion and government, prohibits discrimination on the basis of religion, and prohibits government funding of explicitly religious activities. Oppose religious displays on government property. We went through that. It's okay, and now they want to bring it all back. And recognize this issue's importance as a matter or basic constitutional respect that is not, as it is sometimes portrayed, only of concern to non-theists or atheists. Keeping the government from using religious symbols is as much about inclusion of embattled religious minorities as it is about respecting freedom of thought and the separation of church and state. They don't want religious freedom. They want freedom for everyone else, but for those that, worship the Lord, they don't want it. They hate it. It's just who they are. It's how they are. It's what they do. Issue guidance that clarifies the duty and obligation of government officials to separate their personal and religious beliefs from their work. Jen Psaki was asked about President Biden and his faith at work, and she, in a rambling answer, made it basically plain. Faith at work doesn't count. He has faith. He goes to church, but he's not using it at work. Well, I don't know how his faith is helping him anyway, so that's probably good. But he is using it at work because part of his faith is he believes aborting children. Part of his faith is he believes in taking away religious liberty. Public services are inherently non-sectarian, and so are public offices and government property. We must establish a new standard for appropriate constitutional conduct by all public officials, not just federal, but all. Whether a county clerk like Kim Davis, remember she was, had her moment of fame because she would not issue same-sex marriage certificates, or a U.S. cabinet official like Secretary Mike Pompeo, who openly tweeted and talked about his faith and set the U.S. foreign policies based on faith. Our faith in God, our faith in a creator, our faith in goodness, our faith in great things. Instead, while we have African nations saying, please stop spending your money to kill our babies. which puts the Constitution and the rights of tax-paying citizens first and ensures that public officials never use their positions and offices to discriminate, proselytize, or promote religious dogma. No, we can't do that, but we can use it to promote secular dogma and atheistic dogma and every other kind of dogma. Yes, and even use it to promote Islam and everything else. Let's see. Issue guidance that clarifies the duty and obligation of government officials. No, I just read that, didn't I? I'm sorry. I thought it was the next one, which it clearly isn't. Let's go to this one. Now, you'll like this because it's about Religious Freedom Day. I didn't even know we had one, but anyway. Ensure that Religious Freedom Day proclamations highlight the importance of the Establishment Clause and why it is a critical component of the First Amendment that creates the conditions for religious pluralism to thrive. We recommend using the proclamation and any accompanying White House ceremony as an opportunity to educate Americans about our nation's proud history as a secular nation and to ensure that if clergy are invited, why would you invite clergy to Religious Freedom Day, to participate in the ceremony or public event, to invite representatives of the non-religious community as well. So we're having Religious Freedom Day with atheists. That just sums up religious freedom to me, doesn't it? To you, I don't know. I'm obviously not as smart as some of these people. Nominate judges, a litmus test for judges, who recognize that a robust interpretation of both the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause is necessary to guarantee the religious freedoms of all Americans, and that recent decisions such as Hobby Lobby versus Burwell regarding the application of the Religious Freedom and Rights Act, Greece versus Galloway regarding legislative prayer, and Espinosa versus Montana Department of Revenue represent a new and ungrounded privileging of corporate religious power over essential civil rights and civil liberties. Of course, we can have corporate power over everything we do. You know, they can bankrupt companies, they can give to whoever they want in every liberal way, but we can uphold their beliefs. Hobby Lobby, obviously against the Affordable Care Act, they did not feel as Christians they should have to pay for certain benefits that were against their faith. The Supreme Court sided with them, and liberals have hated that ever since. So we've got to get judges that will overturn these things. Now, they go crazy if we're looking for judges that will overcome Roe versus Wade, but they can do anything they want to take away our freedoms. Suggest the Attorney General confer with the Department Office of Legal Counsel to issue a memorandum regarding enforcement of the Establishment Clause in public schools, including students' protection from school-sponsored proselytizing and teaching accurate evidence-based secular curriculum rather than creationism in the schools. So, just the Attorney General, oh, you can't teach creationism. We don't want that. If you take federal money, we don't want anything about Christianity there. No. And so you see, this is not innocent. This is not, this is how they feel. This is what they're working by. The rise of white Christian nationalism is a national security threat. We recommend you encourage the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice to dedicate resources to de-radicalization programs aimed at hate groups, sensitivity training, camps, come on, including, but not limited to, but the only one they name, white nationalists. White nationalists, they already outlined who we are. We're people who go to church, basically. increase monitoring of such groups, including the online environment, and take action to address increased hate crimes toward minority faith communities and shift rhetoric to label violent white nationalist extremists as terrorists. Not just white supremacists, but white nationalists. You know, they want us done away with, and we're not violently attacking anyone. Not the Christian. And white nationalists. We're proud of our country. We think our country's special. We think we were founded on some godly principles, and we'd like to see them in our government. But no, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, won't do that. That's wrong. Oh, religious freedom abroad. Thousands of people of all religious faiths, and none at all, are suffering under religious oppression, blasphemy rules, and everything else. And what they want us to make sure that these people are protected and even given refugee status here and things of that nature. And yet, who's basically, you don't find that in Christian nations, that's Muslim nations, but at the same time, they want refugees and people just being able to visit from what, they call the Muslim ban, but from terrorist countries. And guess where most of these practices take place? Terrorist countries. I mean, this happens in China and places like that, but they throw it in here, but because they see it as they're victims of us. They're victims of us. It's just all sad. When listing faiths in public remarks or talking about religious pluralism, always include non-religious people. Phrases like all faiths and none, religious and non-religious, believers and non-believers, atheists, agnostics, and humanists, or secular Americans all work. Avoid phrases like and even non-believers, because this framing implies that there is something novel or surprising about including us and that we can be perceived as an afterthought. Yeah, okay. We'll just keep going here. When responded to national crisis and tragedy, the president plays a critical role as healer in chief. Let that sink in. Healer in chief. What does that make him? Oh, that's kind of like a god or something, isn't it? By demonstrating moral leadership, providing comfort, and bringing the nation together. In these moments, it is critical to keep in mind that millions of Americans who do not pray or subscribe to a religious faith must feel included in the president's message to the nation. Prayer or scriptural references must be accompanied by an acknowledgement of the non-religious who have just as much need to heal and feel part of the greater good as everyone else. But what are we supposed to say then? Keep that chin up, bucko. Things may get better or worse. We just don't know. There's no real hope. There's no God. There's no one. Yeah. Pretty exciting, isn't it? Wouldn't that bring healing to you and make me feel better, wouldn't it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just President Reagan would say, I'm not going to do that. We urge you to avoid invoking the phrase Judeo-Christian values, as it has been weaponized by the religious right to advance an agenda that has the veneer of inclusivity but actually undermines religious freedom and tolerance and does not represent tens of millions of Americans implicitly excluded from its formulation. It does, because that's what we were based on. And that's what they want us away from. And that's what's guiding this regime right now. That's what's guiding Congress. That's what's guiding everyone in government. You can go seculardems.org, read it thoroughly. There's a couple of slides I think I missed about chaplains in the service and everything else. I mean, it covers a lot of ground. And ladies and gentlemen, this is real. You need to call the White House, email the White House, call your representative, call the Senate, your senator, and say, I don't want this. This isn't constitutional. This isn't right. Let's fight it. Let's make our voices known. Let's ask God to stop it. Let's call for restoration of good things. Yes. Amen. God bless America. Share this program with someone. And again, you can research everything I've said online. They don't hide anything. That's the most amazing thing about this group now. They're not hiding anything. It's all out there. Well, let's not hide either. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow. Back to our regular programming and here on Countdown to Restoration.